Thanks very much for staying with us. Time now for Eye on Africa with me, Georgia Calvin-Smith. Tonight, the US urges Ethiopia to free Tigrayans detained without pause as the country lifts a 6-month state of emergency brought in as northern rebels moved in on the capital at the end of last year. Also, 200 years of Liberian pride are celebrated as the country fixes its focus on its future. It still faces hurdles in moving past economic instability and the effects of devastating periods of civil unrest in the late 20th century. And peanuts can mean big money to armed groups in parts of Central African Republic. Militia regularly attack farmers in the community of Paoua as they try to wrest control of the Northwest's precious natural resources. But first, Ethiopian lawmakers have voted to end a 6-month state of emergency early. It was first declared in November as Tigrayan fighters at war with the central government drew closer to the capital. The conflict began in late 2020 and has cost thousands of lives, forced millions from their homes, and to the brink of famine. On Tuesday, the US welcomed signs that the crisis could be easing, but also called for the release of Tigrayans detained without charge under the state of emergency. Maria Gerth-Nicolescu tells us more.
The lifting of the state of emergency comes as the security situation has improved in parts of the country. Tigrayan forces, which had threatened in November to march onto the capital Addis Ababa, have largely retreated to Tigray since December. The state of emergency has been particularly felt by Tigrayan residents across the country, with thousands of searches and arrests done without warrants or trials. Rights groups now hope to see a decrease in human rights abuses in the country, including an improvement of press freedom. Whether the lifting of the state of emergency hints towards the end of the conflict in northern Ethiopia remains to be seen. Fighting is still ongoing in the Afar region between Tigrayan forces and regional Afar forces, and humanitarian aid delivery to Tigray is still being hampered. The region faces a very severe humanitarian crisis. There is, however, no fighting on the ground in Tigray, and delivery of medical supplies by air have recently resumed. There are hopes that mediation efforts by the African Union or the United States are starting to bear results, but we'll have to see how the situation evolves in the coming weeks and whether parties will agree to any type of ceasefire or negotiations.
Maria Gerth-Nicolescu there for us. Look now at some news in brief. French President Emmanuel Macron is due to meet with leaders of European and African nations invested in counter-terrorism in the Sahel on Wednesday evening. It comes amidst growing speculation that Paris may withdraw its forces from Mali. France is the main military power fighting extremists in the region, and ties have deteriorated since Mali's military junta ditched plans to organise elections for February and proposed instead to stay in power until 2025. The exit of French troops could mean a drawdown of the French-led European Takuba task force. On Tuesday, Belgium said it had ruled out sending a contingent to Mali. A Kenyan lawyer appeared before the International Criminal Court on Tuesday to deny charges of bribery and intimidation of witnesses. Paul Gicheru is accused of leading a witness tampering scheme in the ICC's failed case against Deputy Kenyan President William Ruto. Prosecutors alleged that he paid sums of up to around €7,800 and threatened witnesses, one at gunpoint, to undermine the case against Ruto in 2014. Now, he faced charges over his role in post-electoral violence in Kenya in 2007 and 2008. Egypt's expanding the Suez Canal. It's lengthening the parts accessible to two-way traffic by 10 kilometres and widening and deepening another 30 kilometres. Now, global shipping traffic was severely disrupted last year when one of the world's largest shipping containers got stuck in the canal for a week. The extensions will cost around €168 million and are expected to be done by next June. Now, this week, Liberia kicked off a year of celebrations of the country's bicentennial. Heads of state from throughout the region headed to Monrovia to mark the 200 years since the arrival of the first free black American settlers. Despite the historical significance of the day, Liberia's 20th century and its civil war has left the country scarred. Shirley Sitbin has more.
It's time to celebrate the year of return. 200 years ago, freed African-American slaves arrived here in Monrovia, or Providence Island as it was called at the time. The settlement became the world's second black republic after Haiti. Looking back at their long history, filled with economic hardships and in the late 20th century, years of deadly civil war, Liberians seek more progress and peace.
Let us think beyond this bicentennial about the generation that will succeed us in the years to come. How can we pave the way so that their future may be better than ours?
Liberia is rich with iron ore and natural rubber, among other resources, but years of war have hit the economy. Political stability in recent years has brought new hope.
I see the betterment of Liberia, and I see young people wanting to do well if they're given the opportunity.
We have fallen behind from a top producing national gross domestic product country to the lowest producing and lowest income earning country on the continent. We are confident that we will turn this around.
To do that, Liberia will not just celebrate this year, it has planned an investors' summit to generate new business, improve health and education.
Senegalese separatists in the southern Casamance region have freed 7 soldiers they captured last month. Their captives were handed over as part of a deal between regional bloc ECOWAS, the Gambian military, and a Catholic charity. Wasim Cornet tells us more.
Free at last. These 7 Senegalese soldiers are now in the hands of the Red Cross after they were freed by rebels of the Movement of Democratic Forces for Casamance, or MFDC. They were captured 3 weeks ago in an incident on the border between Senegal and the Gambia. 4 Senegalese soldiers were killed in those clashes. The group belongs to the ECOWAS peacekeeping mission in the Gambia, but the MFDC rebels say the soldiers had crossed over the border into Senegal's Casamance region.
They don't want any problem between the Gambia and Casamance. If at all their job is only confined within the Gambia, let them stop in the Gambia.
Casamance is practically isolated from the rest of Senegal, separated by the Gambia and the river after which it is named. The MFDC has led a separatist movement there for the past 40 years. Senegal's army has confirmed its men were involved in an operation to combat illegal logging, but has denied the group crossed the border. The decades-long conflict has mostly been dormant until Senegal's army launched a major new offensive last year. President Macky Sall has made achieving peace in Casamance a priority of his second term.
Militia in northwestern Central African Republic have jeopardized the livelihoods of local peanut farmers. Communities in Paoua are regularly targeted by armed groups trying to control exports. Take a look.
Peanuts are key for the survival of the inhabitants of Central African Republic's Paoua region. But for many growers, life is a daily battle. A good harvest should come as good news. But to sell it, they must overcome theft, extortion, or worse, in a region where rebels and pro-government forces are at war.
This year, with the insecurity, there were too many threats and thefts. We had to sell the production very quickly and at low prices. Now we lack seeds to replant.
Celestine Nforo is a groundnut farmer. Celestine's harvest fills several large bags of up to 45 kilograms in just a few hours. Then they go to a secure storeroom, loaned by the humanitarian organisation Oxfam, where they are weighed and sorted. Production greatly exceeds demand in the region, which drives prices down. But the growers won't dare venture as far as the capital Bangui, some 500 kilometres away, to sell them. They fear attacks by rebel groups. Driven back from large towns, the rebels wage a guerrilla war in the countryside.
We have to transport this to either Berberati, Bangui, or Buar to sell it. But as there is this threat of highway robbers, we will be forced to sell at low prices.
A bag like this is sold for around $13 in Paoua, as little as a third of the price in Bangui. One solution is processing the peanuts and selling them at a higher price. But extracting the oil by hand is exhausting, and the locals do not have the capital to invest in modern equipment.
Processing is still at a really artisanal stage. We really need to try to support the chain and industry to develop this processing and try to create outlets.
The need is great. 2/3 of the people in the region lack food, according to the World Food Programme.
Well, that's it for Eye on Africa for now. Thanks for joining us, and do so again if you can. Till then, take care.
Join us here on France 24 for our special coverage of the mother of all elections here in France, the presidential election 2022. The campaign will have our special envoys on the campaign trail. Across the globe, we'll have the latest polling, the best analysis every week here on France 24.
France 2022, the campaign on France 24 and France24.com.
France 24, a different point of view.
Liberté, égalité, actualité.